Hey, this is Dan here from Rune Silk, and I'm joined by one other, and that's none other than Damo for show. And this is the BeardMail podcast. So sit back, listen, and enjoy.
Boom! Today we're talking about vices. I wanted to get it in there quick. I wanted to get it in there fresh. I wanted to let everybody know we're talking about vices because that is our hook. Dan, welcome to the podcast. We're back.
Thank you.
We were vibing in the background. It's D&D, Damo Dan, and we're BeardMail podcasting. How are you, Dan?
Just sniffing my Yeti. Yeah, good. Really good, actually. The weather today is really messed up, though. I don't know what it's like where you are. We've literally had it all, apart from thunderstorms today. So kind of expecting a big thunderstorm tonight.
Obviously, we're going to record a couple of podcasts in a row, so this could come out at any time. So it might not make any relative sense to people's weather. They might not get what we're talking about. However, weather is the weather, and you're absolutely right. I woke up and did the first thing that I always do every morning, which is open my eyes. And then I looked, and the Instagram was flooded with people in blizzards of snow. And I thought, oh, God, is it going to be one of them days? And then by the time I'd got up and done my business and gone outside, it was a beautiful, springy, summery. Like I put my Rune Silk shades on. I got in the car and I went to drive to go and have my hair cut. And halfway there, I was caught in a blizzard. I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's literally it's the same for us. Kids got all excited. Oh, it's snowing. I think it's going to settle, and it started looking like it was going to settle. And then the sun came out and went, "Now I've got different plans for you, mate." And they dried, melted all the snow, and then the hail came down quite crazily. Then it was fine. I jumped in the car, and then the car started shaking about. I was like, "Did my car just move?" I was like, "Jeepers, it's windy as hell."
Wind. It's been windy.
Windy like my guts on a Sunday morning after a curry night.
We've had a food podcast, Dan. We've found out you're an amazingly deep foodie. I have been listening back to some of our podcasts, and they are brilliant, and they just get better and better. So I think from certainly from episode 10 onwards, since I can't remember when I got my Yeti mic, but since I got the Yeti mic, they are good, mate. Quality.
It's a game changer. Game changer. Yeah, absolutely.
Quality. So talking about changing games. Talking about interesting fun-tainment. We like to tell stories. We like to make people laugh, cry. Well, I like to think that people listen to this podcast and shout at us or be involved and feel like they're in the conversation as well. But we do like to educate a little bit as well, keep people safe and have a laugh. So we're going to talk about vices today, Dan. Now this could be hit or miss. Vices is obviously naughty things. So
not like the kind of stuff that you hold when you're trying to file down a bit of like metal, like the vice you get in a workshop. And
no,
that'd be quite a short one, wouldn't it? Got my dick stuck in a vice once.
The only vice I've got is being screwed to the top of the work desk.
Well, there you go. Yeah, we've got a couple of vices here with the microphones I held on to. So talk vices all day if you like. I love a good vice. Really happy.
Vice presidents.
Yeah, absolutely. Advice.
See what you've done there.
Yeah.
To be fair, I did Google vice jokes and there were none. They were terrible. They were all about vice presidents, which wouldn't suit our audience necessarily because they don't know massive amounts. So I was disappointed. So we might have to actually talk about actual vices. I'm talking, I don't know what your vices might be, but I'm talking sex, gambling, drugs, rock and roll. Rock and roll is like a vice, is it? Not maybe guilty pleasures could go in there as well, Dan. We could talk about anything, but we've got a good 24 minutes to talk about vices. If anyone's watching, here's one of mine. Got a little bit of the Corona there. If you're listening on Spotify or iTunes, I've just shown a little bottle of beer there for the viewers at home.
I'm just on the Lucasade.
Yeah, that's because you have to drive to the studio. I'm in my second bedroom.
I have to drive to the studio, and I needed some sugar today. Like,
here we go. Here's a vice. It needed some sugar.
Sugar's one. I think anyone who says I'm not addicted to sugar, bollocks.
Oh, you mean actual sugar? Sorry.
Sugar's the most addictive thing in the world. Like, it's more addictive than cigarettes. More addictive than heroin. It's actually one of the most difficult vices to give up. And most people, when they go on diets and they cut sugar out of their system, you immediately become moody, grouchy, tired. You get kind of spikes when your insulin's trying to fight. Well, not insulin, sorry, because obviously there's no sugar there. But it's a bit worse if your body's used to creating the insulin, and all of a sudden there's no sugar there, and it just completely messes you up. And then you're like, I need a fucking biscuit. It's very, very, very addictive. Sugar is one of my vices. I had to cut it out of coffee. I cut it out of tea. But I like sweet stuff.
All I heard then was you say loads of bad things that happen when you stop having sugar. So surely we should just continue to have sugar.
Just carry on. Well, the thing is, I mean, I interesting enough, the whole thing about vices. I tried as much as I could this year when I started doing the running earlier on in the year. One of the things I wanted to do was give up something different every month, and one for January, so I cut out alcohol. February, I cutting out stuff.
You did not do well, Dan.
No, I gave it a go for a month, but month 2 was supposed to be biscuits, right? And then my wife comes back from the shop and she's like, "Don't touch the party rings." I'm like, they're looking at me, right? Look, they're there in the jar, going, "Come on, man, we call party rings for a reason, Dan. Come on, let's go." All colourful and vibrant in the jar, going, "My girl wants to party all the time, party all the time," and I'm like that going, You eat the party rings?
If my missus came in the house and said, "Don't touch my party ring," that means a whole different thing where I'm.
Is that your vice, is it? What do you mean, can't touch the party ring? How long for? A month?
A week. Just a week. Oh.
I'm an ex-smoker as well, so I guess I do, as a past smoker, overcome the addiction of smoking. That was very difficult. So I don't have many vices left apart from sugar.
Well, interestingly, I too am an ex-smoker, but obviously I was a drug and alcohol worker for 4 years and helped people overcome addictions. And that's not necessarily why we're doing this podcast. I just think it would be good to discuss some of the vices. And I think, like sugar, you're right. Some of them are very subtle. So a lot of people wouldn't consider that they are addicted to sugar or have a dependency on sugar. I think the most widely used drug across the world, it always used to be caffeine. A lot of people don't know. I have to hold my hands up. I go through fits and spurts. I often have an energy drink a day. And I have cut it out before, and I had terrible withdrawals. Bear in mind as well, I've worked with heroin addicts and crack addicts. And there's a lot of physical dependency on alcoholics as well, on people that are physically dependent on alcohol. So the withdrawals from heroin, alcohol, and crack can be cray-cray. But absolutely, withdrawing from caffeine is I can't relate whether it's on a par or not, but it's definitely bad. I had bad headaches for 5 days solid when I cut out caffeine, but I need to go through it all again, I think. I would say for me, vices are beer, caffeine, probably sugar as well, inadvertently. I don't eat sugar on its own, I'm not having a cup of tea with 3 sugars in.
Just gobbling sugar cubes like blah, 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 blah.
Do you know what? I never used to eat chocolate as a kid growing up. Which is, I guess, has got a lot of sugar in. But I've probably now, with the missus, I do sometimes pinch some of her chocolate. And I like to have a little flutter as well. I like to have a little flutter on the horses. But I'd always had a strong guidance from the old dear, which is only gamble what you can afford to lose. And presently, I can't afford to lose anything. So I'm not gambling at the moment. But every year, I will have a bash on the Grand National. Big fan of the Grand National.
I forgot this year. It just sort of came along. And I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot to put anything on the Grand National. Poker was a big problem for me for a few years ago. Online poker.
Is that the party ring thing with the wife again?
Yeah, all of mine are sexual innuendos for something. I used to play online poker. I think gambling is probably a real difficult one because you don't realize that it's bad until you kind of, especially now. So like if you think gambling 20 years ago, you'd go into like a bookies or whatever and you play like a slot machine or something like that and you go, balls, I'm out of money, I might as well go home with my head tail between my legs, I've spent all my money. Now you're just like, oh, well, just deposit a tenner and you don't feel it. You don't even notice it's gone. You're like, oh, shit, another 20 quid, 50 quid, £100, £50, £100. And before you know it, you're like, shit, that's £300 down. Like in a blink of an eye, it's so easy to just go deposit. I know a friend of mine, a friend of my wife's. They were due to get married. Her fiance, literally, I think he was in a desperate place financially. They were getting married. He spent their wedding savings in the gambler.
Damn.
Blew the lot because he wanted. I think his mind was he was going to take that money and gamble it into more money. And then they'll have a better wedding, and I don't know if it was have a better wedding, or they wouldn't suffer financially because of the wedding was going to be so expensive. And I think he ended up losing pretty much the whole wedding fund. Their wedding wasn't what they wanted at all.
I was about to say, worst case scenario, it was probably cheaper for him to lose all of that than having to get divorced and then getting screwed over. So probably a smart move. But it sounds like they still got married. So
they still got married. They still got married.
Out.
It wasn't as big and as extravagant as they wanted, and they're not together anymore. Lo and behold, so they actually could get married, and then they're not together. But I think it is gambling can be a really difficult one, and the problem is when you've lost it, you're desperate to get it back.
Yeah, chasing those losses.
Yeah, and I think that's it. And I think that I went through a phase, and some don't get wrong, like sometimes I'm kind of like, ooh, little cheeky little top up 20 quid and get some free spins, eh? It's like start ticking away in the corner. But most gambling sites now I've actually excluded myself from completely. Like don't even send me a postcard. Don't send me an email. Don't send me a text, because it's those naughty little texts that you're like, ooh. And I think gambling should be illegal for them to actually do bullish marketing, because it is.
I think things have changed a lot. I mean, I remember the first time going into a bookies, my granddad would pop bets on, and I'm talking, this is at least 30 years ago, and he would put bets on, and he would do these silly accumulators that were like 5p, and he would literally be betting like 50p a week or something silly. But it was the purpose for him. He would have something to do, something to read, something to study, fill out the form, walk down to the bookies. And when you go into the bookies, you had to fill it out. You had to pay tax on it as well. So you had to write the slip out and work the tax out and put it on. And they didn't have, I'm sure they didn't even have slot machines in them days. They were full of smoke, and it was just old men in there. It wasn't a place for the youth, and it wasn't a place for the ladies. And that's how it was. And things have changed massively now. And if you think about how much access there is, and I'm talking, for the ladies, I'm talking online bingo, online scratch cards. There's a lot of, the gambling industry are making a fortune somewhere. And they are targeting some of the most vulnerable people, some of this, like, the Sun Bingo and that, they're promising these dreams, and they're rinsing people of their money. And I can see how it's very easy to get into and addicted. But that said, they are, there is gamble aware, and there is things in place now, certainly when you're gambling online, where you can put your own things in place to make sure you don't spend more. But for the people that are going to have trouble, they're not looking at that thinking, oh yeah, I better use that. So you're right, but we ought to just say, actually, if this is not necessarily triggering for people, but we ought to say, there is help and advice out there for people if they do want to change their habits or quit. I've never been that bad with it, but I tell you what is different now, what you couldn't used to be able to do. I use Paddy Power, actually. You can now, it's quite easy to find out how much you've spent over a year. Whereas before, they'd never be wanting to give you that information, because if you realise, you're like, well, I'm not doing that anymore. And I think I usually come out about even. I never, sometimes I have some wins and take it out. Sometimes I lose, but over the course of a year, I'm usually about even. But I've never. I mean, have you ever had a massive win or ever had a massive loss?
I have had some big wins. Like there was, there's been a few times. I think it was, when I say massive, I mean, I don't really gamble massive, but like I had a digital national lottery scratch card, £200 on that. And what was the most, I think the most I ever won on an online fruit machine was probably about 400 quid.
Boom!
But it probably cost me about 200 quid to win it, and I'd probably already lost loads of money before then. So I kind of see what you're saying about with the net deposits, and when you do look at it, sometimes you do sort of break even overall. And I think that some of them are kind of like, oh, this person spent a load of money, we should probably give some of it back. But then there's others that just spend a load of money and they're like, well, we're going to keep it. And I think quite a lot of the online fruit machines, they know how you play. They know the psychology of a gambler.
Yeah.
If someone's sitting there really frustratingly pressing the spin button really quickly, like tapping away, I reckon that triggers something that says, this guy is fucking desperate. Let's just rinse him.
Yeah, they
Or
usually let you win a little bit to start with to get you in, and then wait till you've lost a little bit. But actually, I did watch a program on it actually, and these were professional gamblers, and what they were doing is they were gambling on tennis, and they had someone in America that was at the actual tennis ground, and there was a slight lag before it got on to like Paddy Power in England or whatever it was, and the margins were very small, but they knew who was going to win, so they were betting a load of money, and these guys that were doing it, the providers of the gambling sites can see that they're doing it, and they have the gambling sites have people that are good bettors or bad bettors, and the ones that are like the bad ones that are winning money, they get them shut down. Their accounts get changed or turned down, or they can only bet a minimum of £100 instead of they're doing like 10 grand on the next point. They're not allowed to do it. They cut it down. So the gamblers aren't sorry. The bookies aren't daft. The bookie always wins. That's what everyone always says.
house always
But,
wins.
I mean,
Yeah.
I always used to do like I did this for years actually, because I had this vision, right? I used to bet on the football. I used to do a tenner a week because I could afford that. I thought that's £40 a month, tenner a week. And, if I win, I win. And if I lose, I lose. I don't mind, because it makes the football more exciting for me to watch. So I'd do like 50p accumulators on lots of different ones. And if one of them came in, I could win, a couple of grand. But I had this vision of seeing Gary Lineker on Match of the Day reading out loud, well, if you'd have bet on all of the teams to draw 0-0 today, you'd have been a big winner. And it's like, that's what I always used to do. I used to always bet like 50p on all the home teams to win, all the teams to draw, or all the away teams to win. Because I always imagine Lineker saying it, and I'm thinking, yeah, that's me. But I did that honestly, religiously. That was a £1.50 bet altogether, and I never won. I did that for years and never won. So don't do that. Don't do that, kids.
But so yeah, gambling can be is a bad one. And I think it has more of a knock-on effect, especially financially. If you do put yourself in shit and in debt and that sort of thing, it can have devastating effects. I mean, but for me, I think smoking was one of those ones I just dipped in and out of quite a lot. I mean, I started smoking from a very young age. Like I started smoking about 13. I think I had my first cigarette, and we would probably smoked solidly till I was about, I don't know, like 29, 30. And then I was like, right, I should probably stop. And then I tried to stop, and then I picked up loads of weight. And then I started smoking again. And then I stopped and picked up loads of weight. Stopped. It was one of those real weird things where I think I stopped smoking probably about 4 or 5 times. And every time I put on like half a stone in weight.
Swapped it for eating and sugar.
So I was like, yeah, exactly that. Swapped one vice for another. I don't smoke now. I mean, I do have like the odd cigarette. Like if I go out and I'm drinking, sometimes I'm like, oh, go on, let's have a cigarette, and then I'll have it, and I'll be like, I regret that. Oh, that was horrible. Sometimes it's quite nice, and I might have a couple, but I just don't want to start again, because it's one of those ones that's really easy. And when you've got kids as well, like I've got kids, and I really don't, I think for me, one of the biggest like changes or flippers for me was the those little candy sticks that they're just sugar sticks.
Yeah.
My son was sat on the bench with me, and he was like, I'm having a cigarette with my daddy, and I was like, game over, that's it. And I didn't smoke since, because I was like, that was for me, that was like literally fags in the bin, I'm done. Like that was heartbreaking. He was 3, 4, 3 at the time, something like that. So that was a couple of years ago that I was smoking again, and then now I've kind of I call myself
I know what you were thinking. You're thinking, I'm not waiting for him to grow up and then start nicking my fags. I'm not having that. Let's quit now.
Yeah, fortune now. Crikey. I was on Deliveroo the other day, and I was just, because I think the thing popped in. It was like, spend 20 quid and get you shopping for a tenner or something like that. So I was like, let's have a look at this then. And as you're scrolling through, you get through the alcohol and the cigarettes. £18 for 20 cigarettes. I was just I'm sorry, did you say £18? When I was at school, I would sell them for 20p each and still make money. Like now you're looking like 95 pence a cigarette, and I think they were like Pall Mall, not like Marlboro Lights or Bennies. So they were proper like middle of the road cigarettes.
That's delivered to your door though. I used to be on. I smoked from about, officially, I told my dad when I was 16. I say told my dad. I asked him. I said, "Oh, Dad, now I'm 16. Am I allowed to smoke?" And he was like, "Fucking no." I'm like, "Damn, I've been smoking for a year." And I think I quit when I was 21. I think I might have been 24, 21, 24. I can't remember. I just remember I was trying to wean myself off them, and I used to smoke John Player Specials, which were just because it was a black packet and they looked cool. I used to go fishing. and have 40 JPS and just smoke and fish. And then anyway, I started weaning myself off them, and I tried them embassy filters, which were little ones. I got down to, there was silk cut, and then there was silk cut purple and silk cut silver. And I was over in, because you live a bit of Ireland, I was over in Belfast with work, and they seemed like they were more expensive because it was euros. And I bought some silk cut silver, I think, which are really, really lightweight fags. And I breathed in, I was like, why have I just spent that money doing that? This is ridiculous. And so I knocked on the head. And I tell you what, though, I was ever so stressy for 2 weeks without fags. But then after them 2 weeks were over, I was fine. And then I was an adamant non-smoker, because it just makes no sense whatsoever to smoke, especially now with how much it costs, especially now with how much we know. You know, if you look at people around me have all knocked it on. They've had cancer and died. And it's like, well, actually, yeah, they did all smoke for 30 years. So, you can't.
Yeah.
You know
For me, it'd be like I'd have the first cigarette a day. I'd be in the back garden with a cigarette and a cup of coffee, and like I'd be tired anyway. And then I have my cigarette, and then I feel really tired. I'm like, why am I doing this to my, like, literally wake up tired as hell, go and have the first cigarette, and now just increase my tiredness by like 5. And then I'm like, I just want to go back to bed. Just really want to go back to bed. And for me as well, because obviously, I mean, I wasn't exactly very athletic. I mean, you play the football and a bit more athletic, whereas I wasn't even athletic. Like, I just smoke and was lazy. So for me, it was like a double-edged sword. Like, I've probably done irreparable damage to my lungs and my body in that. And it's kind of like, well, the best thing I can do is at least stop. Like, I can't reverse it.
Exercise actually helped me quit. Actually, I remember I'd got on a treadmill and I was knackered after a little bit, and I thought, this is terrible. I should be in my prime, at 21 or whatever. So I think that helped. I think I did a lot of exercise after I quit, and you feel good for it. But I'm sure they say your lungs can, cleanse themselves out. Now I'm sure you'll be golden now if you haven't smoked for 10 years or whatever it is.
Well, I think they kind of say there's a certain sort of threshold though, where I think it's like about the age of 34, where if you're still smoking after 34, it's probably going to be a bit more difficult for you to repair those lungs. Whereas if you stop in your 20s, you're still kind of growing, you're still kind of, so it's all down to do with age really. But then, I find it really interesting, Megan's grandmother died in her late 80s, and she probably smoked 60 fags a day. It was probably the tar that was holding her together at that point. And it's like, and then you see some people who never smoke and they die of lung cancer, and it's like, whoa, that's deep. But yeah, I think I went through a stage, especially in when I was sort of 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I was quite a heavy weed smoker. Like I smoked cannabis quite heavily, every day. So I smoke weed every day, and it really was for me. And I think, I think at one point I actually think I might have misinterpreted the want of a joint for actually want of a cigarette. But I was like, well, what's the point of having a cigarette? Because a cigarette doesn't really do anything; it just makes you tired and sluggish. Whereas at least a joint makes you feel high, and you might laugh at some stuff and be mellow and chill. So rather than have a cigarette, I'd roll a small joint. And then I think then it sort of twigged like, hang on a minute. Do you need to be any more high, or do you just want a cigarette, but you don't want to have a cigarette, so you rather have a joint? And you think cigarettes are expensive, crikey, when you're smoking fags and weed, and it's ridiculous. But
I'm not sure of the facts, but I'm sure they used to say in the drugs world that cannabis and that is 4 times more carcinogenic than cigarettes.
Weed smokers will tell you otherwise. They'll say that it cleans your lungs and it's really good for you, but it's not. It's much.
What about the mark? What's the market science saying?
It depends who's selling you the weed. So the thing you've got to think about with weed smokers is that most of it's unfiltered. For one, you make a cardboard thing, roach. Whereas at least with a cigarette, you put a filter in it. Some people don't smoke fags. They smoke. Some people smoke roll-ups and stuff without filters, which is minging, and some people smoke cigars, which also aren't really filtered. But technically, you're smoking an unfiltered cigarette, and most of the time with a joint as well, you kind of go, you hold it in.
There's the ASMR. We nailed it there. We do one each podcast.
And you hold it in for longer as well, and especially when we were young, we used to play games where you take a toke, you pass the joint around a group of 6 of you, and you weren't allowed to breathe it out until it came back to you, and then it would go again, and then hold it in again. So my lungs.
Some hardcore vice in that is, Dan. I didn't know you were an illegalist as a youth.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, it was mainly when I was not in this country, though. Yeah.
Just to say like how actual ridiculous it is. The
Mm.
concept that your lungs are designed to breathe in air so you can perform as a person. It's crazy to think that humans would design, oh, I know, let's burn some stuff and put it in our lungs. Like you would never go and just inhale a bonfire smoke, would you? But it's random how people are dead keen, obviously because of the addictive nature of the drugs, but how people are, I don't. It just seems ridiculous. Why, in the name of Greek buggery, would you actually try and inhale black, smoky stuff into your lungs?
Because as a
Like,
being, we're
it's
totally
crazy.
stupid.
It's crazy. It's
I was
crazy.
talking to my mum about this actually at the weekend. We were joking about how if an alien race sort of discovered like the Earth, and they're like, oh, you know, do you think we should be scared of these people? They've got like satellites with like nuclear bombs and stuff on it. And the aliens are like, well, not really, because they're pointing the bombs at themselves. Like,
Yeah,
rather than
true.
pointing them out into space to deter anyone coming to our planet, we're pointing them at ourselves. So if you think about it, human beings, man, we're absolutely, we're so stupid.
We are
Like,
so stupid. But we love a vice, though, don't we? You know, we love a beer, even though we know it's bad for us. We might have grown out of smoking. Maybe we will grow out of beer drinking. Who knows?
I like beer.
I
do like beer.
I go through phases. I sometimes have a whole month off, and I always feel better for it. I think the most I've done in my adult years is I did 3 months off once, and I felt loads better. I lost a bit of weight, and was doing more gym and that, and healthier and fitter. But still sort of missing that. I'm looking at the beer now so longingly. I'm just like, oh, it looks so good. But I know it's bad
My
for me.
mind's
But,
telling me no, but my
my
body
body
is telling me yes.
We do not also condone any R. Kelly vices while we're just saying.
Oh yeah, of course. And the other, I'll tell you one thing that we talk about, sex, drugs, rock and roll, sugar, and all of the great stuff in life and how much of a vice they are. But we haven't actually mentioned one of the biggest vices that probably 99% of the population who knows what one is has it as their vice, and that's their mobile phone with social media.
Yeah,
like
big
social
time.
media is definitely one of the biggest vices. Have you ever gone a month without social media? I've tried. It's near impossible.
Why do you think it's called Instagram?
Oh, look at that! Look at that! Instagram. That reminded me. Sorry, there was a Russell Brand thing popped up. It was saying Russell Brand getting naughty on British Bake Off, and he said something like
2 grams.
2 grams. Just did it instinctive. Instinctively, he just pulled that out. But social media, I mean, the amount of times I pick my phone up and I'm like a first string fake straight in. And I'm like, oh, Facebook, and I'm like notifications, and I'm like, and then I realize, there's not actually anything, there's no one's tagged me anything or anything like that. So I'll hit the home button and I'll just scroll.
Poor Dan.
and
then I go and gamble 400 quid for a fix because I can't get a buzzer.
Exactly that. So then I go to Instagram and I'm like, no, Instagram. Okay, well, I've done some liking, and then I'm just scrolling through, not really engaging in it at all. Might do a couple of likes, drop in a couple of comments, and then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, back to Facebook, check my emails, and it's actually, I'm even doing it now. I'm actually doing it now. I've actually just pinged over my emails, had a look at my emails, go into WhatsApps and stuff like that, and it's it is dangerous. A friend of mine, he actually every year when he goes away for Christmas, he gets, and I want to do this actually. He gets like a 2G old school Nokia, play Snake on it, all you like, but you've got no interwebs, you've got no social media. He leaves his smartphone at home. They go away for a week, go and stay in a log cabin somewhere sick where they can take the dogs, and he just gets off like just digital detox. I tell you what, actually, when I was decorating the house was probably the most digital detox I had, because I was very rarely on socials, and it was liberating. I loved it. I learned how to build a cupboard. I painted a house.
There was 2 mil doors too big.
Yeah, I fixed it. I fixed
so
it.
Hang on, Dan. What you're saying is everybody should take a little break from social media, and they should go into a log cabin and just play with their snake for a week. Is that what you said?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I couldn't think of anything better.
Is that another little vice you've got? Maybe playing with your snake too often, thrashing him about, poor little fella.
We don't call it a vice.
The party ring poker.
we don't call those vices, because then it puts a negative spin on something so enjoyable.
I see what you've done there. So, Dan, we actually are running out of time right now, and we've covered a little bit of vices. I don't think we've covered it all, but I think we should perhaps just make sure that everybody is safe at home. And if you've got any vices, pack them in, you naughty boy, or seek help.
Just thought,
yeah.
What's it called?
The snake.
No. What do we call phones?
Mobile phones.
It's a device.
Ah, I see what you've done there. Like if you was Jamaican and that, you would say this is a device.
This is device.
Is that why it's called that?
No, but it is now.
It could be, couldn't it?
Because Marky Science, we call that a device.
Oh, we love Marky Science at BeardMail. So do you know what? We haven't even covered all the vices. We didn't cover porn. We didn't cover drugs properly, really. We didn't even go into the beer and that. So maybe for another day. But I think that's enough vices for one day. Little and often is the key. Moderation is what some people will say. I would say well done for quitting smoking, Dan. And
you too.
We didn't even discuss addictive personalities, and I wanted to do that, but we'll have to do that another day. That'll be another podcast because we need to say goodbye because it has to be a quick one today, doesn't it?
It does.
Thanks for listening, everybody. You do the salesy bit, Dan, and I'll get rid of the buttons.
So if you enjoyed listening to the podcast today, please do make sure to like and subscribe. Ideally, if you could share it with other like-minded bearded folk or people who like beards or just like BeardMail or podcasts in general, please do. And head over to beardmail.co.uk where I can flick a bottle off the table. Is
that another vice?
Yeah, probably.
Comment vices, Dan. Get people to comment their vices. We'd be
comment vices. Just and if it triggered you, sorry, that's not what we meant to do here. But if you found solace in knowing that other people have vices and other people can get sorted and stuff like that as well, then I hope that's helped too. But subscribe, share, love you, bye.
Bye for now.
Thanks for listening, guys. Take care.
See you in a bit. Bye for now.